Good morning from Antigua. We are just getting ready to check out of our Airbnb, and boy, am I sore this morning. My quads hurt to touch, which makes my calves hurt a little less than they probably do in reality. What about you?
More or less the same. My calves are absolutely on fire. I kind of hyperextended my shoulder as we were climbing up yesterday for the summit hike, so that's a little bit sore too, but I think there's just a general achiness this morning, despite having gotten a very sound night's sleep.
Fortunately, we don't have a lot going on today. It's just a travel day. We're taking an overnight shuttle with Errands this evening. So today we're just gonna go find a cafe that has Wi-Fi and do some work.
After a couple of hours working, we are now sitting down to what looks like it's going to be an epic lunch.
We've just done a few errands and then we killed some more time by grabbing a smoothie in a different cafe because we kind of overstayed our welcome in the other one. But it is now finally time to get our first shuttle bus of the night from here in Antigua to Guatemala City.
Just over an hour on the bus, we have now arrived into Guatemala City. Now we have to wait a couple of hours to get onto our next bus, which will then take us to our final destination.
After 8.5 hours, we have finally reached our final destination of Flores. How did you sleep?
Better than I expected, actually. Definitely there was a pretty decent stint where I got maybe about 4 or 5 hours, and then it was a bit on and off, but I still managed to get some extra, so that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, same. I slept when we left, then I had a period when I was awake, but then I slept again afterwards. So all things considered, for a bus where the seats do not recline to 160 degrees, it was actually a pretty comfortable night.
Yep, but now, what's the plan? We're going to try and get to our accommodation to drop off our bags at least?
Yeah, we're gonna get to our hostel, drop off our bags, see if the room is ready, although I don't think it will be this early,
Probably not.
and maybe grab some breakfast while we wait.
Sounds great, let's do it. As expected, our room definitely was not ready yet, so instead to pass some time, we're heading here for some breakfast.
We've just checked into our hostel and we have a private room and private bathroom here, which I did book on purpose. So for hostel, it is a little bit more expensive. It is 210 quetzals per night or 37 Canadian dollars, but hopefully it'll be worth it to have some private space. And they were super kind to let us check in several hours early.
But now that we're here, we really don't have a lot planned beyond just getting some work done and chilling. So we will call it here for now, but we will definitely be picking this up tomorrow where we go somewhere super exciting.
See you in the morning. Good morning.
From Flores.
It is just approaching 4 a.m. and the reason that we're up so early is because today we are going on a guided tour to the ancient Mayan city of Tikal.
Let's head to the meeting point.
The reason that Tikal is so popular is not just because of the Mayan ruins that make it so famous. It's actually a national park where you can get to see a lot of wildlife, so hopefully we'll get to see a lot today. We're here at the meeting point now, so time to catch a bus.
Before we start our tour of Tikal, we have stopped for breakfast, but most importantly, coffee.
Cheers. Now that we're all fueled up, it's time to go on our tour.
We've just entered the national park and it costs 150 quetzal per person to get in here. However, our driver plus guide was an additional 130 quetzals per person.
Just climbed to the top of Temple 4, and this is the tallest structure in the entire archaeological site of Tikal. But as you can see behind me, there are a number of other structures and other complexes around the site, and also from here you can see for miles this expanse of land is vast, and it really gives you an appreciation for just how big this place would have been back in its heyday. You'll notice that we've been up another structure already. That's a pyramid, this is a temple. So just wanted to kind of help you understand the difference here. In Mayan culture, the pyramid was really a center of astronomical thought. So from that they calculated the seasons, the days, the calendar as a whole, and a lot of their science came from that. This, as a temple, is a spiritual structure purely. So people who wanted to pray to the gods would make their way up these steep staircases in order to pay their respects to the gods. There is another little preconception about the Mayans which has actually been disproven. You'll notice that in front of the pyramids and in front of the temples there are certain large stone structures. Those are altars, and that would be where a lot of the sacrifices would be made, either animal or human. What you see in certain depictions of Mayan civilization where the sacrifices are being made from the top of the temples is actually false. It was only at the altars. The sacrifices were never made this high up.
And here in Guatemala, the Mayans didn't sacrifice people from their own community. It was prisoners that they had taken from conquered enemies.
And so really those kind of human sacrifices were really to just show the power and the dominance of the Mayan civilization at the time.
And they were only apparently really on special occasions too, so not a regular occurrence. in the Lost World Plaza, which is the oldest part of Tikal, and despite that, we haven't come across any dinosaurs. Aww. But in all seriousness, our guide was telling us that the Mayans first arrived here about 900 BC, and then they deserted this area in 900 AD. So the Mayans occupied this region for nearly 2,000 years. The temples and the pyramids and all the structures here have been built over quite a long period of time, and sometimes the temples or pyramids started off small, but they were just continually added to or built upon, and that's how they got bigger and bigger.
After seeing a bunch of amazing complexes, we are now at the main plaza of Tikal. Unlike the other places that we had seen, which seemed to serve specific purposes, this seems to really be where everything within the society of Tikal culminated. So we're talking astronomy, religion, politics, government, all of that kind of stuff. It would all take place right here.
One of the most prominent structures here in the main plaza is Temple 1. And Temple 1 was the king's temple, and it has to do with sunrise. And sunrise can also be considered birth, which explains why it has 9 platforms. Because there are 9 months of gestation. So really, the Mayans were very symbolic.
Continuing on the symbolism is this temple. This was dedicated to the queen of the king of that temple there. By contrast though, whereas that temple signifies the sun and life, this one signifies the moon, sunset, and also its parallels to death. And that is why there are 3 tiers, each of those representing the earth, the heaven, and then the underworld.
We are now standing on the top of Temple 2, and we have a fabulous bird's eye view of the main plaza. From here, of course, we can see Temple 1 in the distance. However, on my left over here, you can see the central Acropolis, and then to my right, we can see the northern Acropolis. Sadly, our time here at Tikal is coming to an end, and I don't feel like we've been able to see everything here by any stretch of the imagination. We missed seeing Temple 5, which was apparently the first structure that was discovered here, and I think he even said was the first temple that was built here in Tikal as well. But just to give you an idea, currently what they've uncovered is 16 square kilometers, and obviously in 4.5 hours you're not going to be able to see all of it. But when the Mayans were living here, It was 100 square kilometers, which makes sense because our guide told us that there were 300,000 to 500,000 people living here at its height.
The crazy thing about this as well is that all of this amazing nature that you are seeing currently and that we're having the joy of experiencing wouldn't have been here either. The Mayans were particularly big on land clearance to make way for these incredible structures. So as a result, like pretty much everything besides these buildings would have been completely barren back in the day. But I think actually it's kind of better for having the nature now. It's an amazing blend of human history and also natural history now.
Yeah, it was amazing and a bit of a surprise to me that we were able to see agouti, spider monkeys, and coati. And I mean, the reason that the Mayans abandoned this in the first place is because of deforestation and a food and water shortage, because they had completely cleared the land. So the fact that they abandoned it and nature took its course.
It almost sounds like a cautionary tale, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's pretty much it for the tour here. So now it's time to get back on the bus.
After 9.5 hours, we are now back at our hostel, but that was a very long tour. It was super informative, very professional, so I think excellent value for money. And my favorite thing about visiting Tikal is that it didn't feel overcrowded at all. Whereas when I was in Chichen Itza years ago, I just remember there being so many people. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it seems to just be a really special place in general. As previously mentioned, there's obviously a really lovely mix between learning more about the history and also just appreciating the nature and the wildlife that's around you as well. And then couple that with the fact that, like Rachel mentioned, there's barely any clashes between tour groups, and generally speaking, you kind of get the freedom of the site. That really just makes it that much more special because it feels almost bespoke. It's a really lovely experience. Obviously, super happy that we got to see any kind of Mayan ruins, but the very fact that we were able to do so at what felt like our own pace, more or less unimpeded, was really, really good. So I'm glad that we did this. But that is all we have planned for today. We are utterly pooped, as I'm sure you can probably tell. And so with that, we are going to call it here, but we will bring you along for our next adventure here in Flores. So until next time, take care.
And keep smiling.